What's going on YouTube? Today I bring you my running back rankings for the 2022 NFL Draft. Quarterback rankings are already out, so if you haven't checked those out, go ahead and go check them. There are 20 guys there, as well as there were special teams in that video, so kickers and punters as well. Today we are obviously going over the running backs. So starting off with my day one guys, number one for me is going to be Breece Hall, and it is pretty clearly the top two guys are going to be Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. Me personally, I am going to go with Breece Hall. He is a bigger guy that's played behind a much worse offensive line. With Kenneth Walker, like I get it, he's great. He's got everything to his game that you're really looking for. But Hall is just kind of another monster because the dude puts up consistently great production with maybe the worst offensive line in college. Well, at least in relevant college football. It's just not good. Brock Purdy's obviously not a good quarterback, so a lot of that offensive production falls solely on the shoulders of Breece Hall, and he does great work with it. I just cannot imagine him behind a good offensive line. If he goes to a team with a good offensive line, I think this guy's going to be a star, probably a top 10 running back in the NFL. If not, I still think he's genuinely going to be a good starter in the league. So with a guy like Kenneth Walker, where I don't think you can quite say the same, he is going to be my number two. And with Kenneth Walker, like I said though, like he's still got everything, and I actually think he is a bit of a better receiver than Hall. And despite being a smaller guy, he's still got some good power to his game as well. Does remind me, a lot of just a lot of different running backs. He reminds me of Le'Veon Bell in a lot of rights. Former MSU guy. Just as far as that he does make nice cuts and he does have nice open field speed and stuff, but at the same time just packs a lot more of a heavy punch. I'm not somebody that likes running backs day one. That's just not what I like. It's not valuable enough. So, honestly, even with a very, very stacked running back class next year, I'll probably have one, maybe two guys as first rounders. I'm just not a big fan of it. So I don't see either one of these guys going day one. I would not be surprised me at all if, one or even both did go day one, but I don't think I would take them. But they are pretty clearly the top two guys. Number three, Rachaad White out of ASU. Kind of had my eye on this guy, since before the draft cycle really started this year. Kind of first heard about him from Broshmo. And I liked what I saw, and the dude he was great this year. He did have a bit of a breakout year. And again, it's just kind of what you're looking for. I don't think he's quite on the level of a Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, just because, he's got a bit of a bigger frame, which does actually limit, as far as just his agility, his speed. He's not like that smooth runner like a Kenneth Walker, and he's not that extreme power back like a Breece Hall, but he's a nice mix of, a lot of things in between. I think he's well worth, probably a second round pick, late second round pick. I like Rachaad White. And then number four, Dameon Pierce, a very safe prospect in my opinion. He's got a lot to his game. I mean, he's not just like a safe guy, that should be a solid backup. No, he has legitimate upside, starter upside. He just does everything really well, especially his footwork is really nice. He's not like the fastest, but he's got some nice speed, nice acceleration, got some good power to his game. I think he's got a lot going for him, and he is a safe back, just because of what he brings and the way he plays. At the very worst, this guy is going to be a very high level back. Backup back. He's at the very worst, I see him as a high level backup. And like I said, he has legitimate starter potential, so I think it's well worth a second round pick. I really like Dameon Pierce. I think he's going to be a good player at the next level, and with a pretty high floor. So I like him. Number five, still on day two, so it's probably more like third round. We got Tyler Algier out of BYU, redshirt sophomore. And, this is a guy that I would be really tempted to take on day two, but I don't think he's quite the safest player. I think that this is a running back that you really don't want to take too early because I see a lot of bust potential in him. But there's also a decent boom on him as well. I think this guy, at his best can be a top 25 back and could be pretty good, if a team does hit, if a team gives him a good situation. But if not, I don't think he's going to end up being the greatest back. So it's kind of that mix, right? Because I do think that he's worth taking, early third round. Definitely, because he's got some great upside in him and he's shown some really nice things at BYU, but he's not the safest player, so he is going to come in, on the kind of second page of day two. Hassan Haskins out of Michigan. Another guy that has just shown some really nice things. I'm pretty confident at the very worst he's going to be a good backup in the NFL. He's a big guy as well, but moves nice for his size. He's just one of those guys where he can just truck it, despite being one of the bigger backs in this class. And yeah, again, like I'd be very happy taking this guy third round. Heck, if he falls out of day two, I'm happy with that because that's kind of where he's projected, and I'd be very happy taking this guy day three. Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati. Um, this guy, like he's got really good balance to his game. He's nice footwork. He's a nice speedy threat. Has some nice receiving, and he's not a bad power back either. Like he brings a lot to the table in a lot of aspects. I don't think he has the boom of some of these other guys. It's simply why he's just below him. It's just because he's not doesn't have that ceiling. It can still be a starter, especially for certain teams in the NFL, but I just don't think he'll ever be like that elite player. And it's kind of going to be the story with these guys, going forward. Is it's going to be, does he have elite potential? What's his floor? That's kind of gonna what it's gonna be. But I do like Ford again, day two pick. Like he'll still be a good back in the NFL. And then Kennedy Brooks out of Oklahoma. This is what great power. Like he's not the fastest, he's not the greatest receiver, but he does have some really nice power to his game. He's dealt with a few injuries, but I'm pretty sure at least I think he's had an injury in every year of his career. Nothing serious, but just regardless, something obviously. But yeah, just a great power back. And, similar to Jerome Ford, not that ceiling, but I think he is one of the safer players. I'm a fan of those like power backs. I like power backs that can just give you, kind of what can give you production regardless of their line and stuff. And I think Kenny Brooks is one of those guys where, I mean, every running back, depends on their line, obviously, but there are running backs that depend on it a little less. Kenny Brooks is one of those guys, in my opinion. Moving on to day two, still actually my last guy of day two, Sincere McCormick out of UTSA. This guy really went off this year. I want to put him higher. I can't quite just because he is a really unsafe player to me. This guy is definitely boom or bust in my opinion, and I think he's worth a third round pick because the boom is really nice. I think this guy probably has a higher ceiling than Kennedy Brooks, than a few of these other guys we've already talked about. But he also probably has the lowest floor out of any guy we've talked about besides Tyler Algier. So that's kind of the issue, is just that I think he's worth it because the boom is really nice. Running back is not the most valuable position, so I'm fine taking a boom or bust guy, kind of end of the third round if I need one. And, to putting that potential, taking that potential and seeing if your guy can hit on it. Sincere McCormick, I think he can. I don't feel as confident about it as some of these other guys. That's why he's down here at 9. But I think he definitely can. And I do like McCormick. There's a lot of good backs in this class. It's another deep position where it's like, yeah, there's not that top guy, but it's a very deep position, and McCormick being 9 kind of shows that. And then moving on to name 3, number 10, we got James Cook, and Cook is a safe player to me, but that doesn't mean much because even if his floor is still like a lower level backup. So it's like, yeah, he's a safer player. Like he will be on NFL rosters most likely, but I don't think he has the upside. Like I think he, at the very best, he can be, a good backup. And he can be a starter, certainly. Again, like for certain teams, this guy's definitely the starter. I'm taking him on the Texans and other teams and stuff, but overall, it's worth the day 3 pick to me. 4th rounder, I think feels right. First 10 picks of the 4th round. But he's got nice, just nice play to his game. He does remind me of Dalvin Cook. I'm pretty sure his brother or cousins, but I'm pretty sure brother in some respects, just because, he's got nice agility and nice speed, but he is a solid receiving back as well. So, he's not going to be his brother, but he is still good enough definitely to be drafted. So I got him day 3. Number 11, Pierre Strong out of South Dakota State. And this was not a guy that I'd picked up on until the East-West Shrine Bowl, where he played great. Yeah, especially in the game. He didn't play for a ton in the game, but like when he did come in, I mean, he did what he needed to do and got out. And what he needed to do was go score dominantly. So I'm excited for him, to be honest, because I don't think he's, kind of got a big enough name, playing against lower competition, not got like that elite production. I don't think he can push himself into the day 2 conversation as of right now, unless the team falls in love with him. but he's got nice size. He's got all the intangibles. Like he's got a very high floor, not a high floor. He's got a very high ceiling, but also kind of a low floor. So that's basically why he ends up here is because I really like Pierre Strong. I think he can be a great back in the NFL, like a starter level guy. I just it's an unsafe player, and it's a similar case with Joshawn Corbin, redshirt sophomore out of FSU. Again, he's got a lot of really nice intangibles. I don't think he's quite got the speed of Pierre Strong, although he is a sort of quick guy. He's not quite, that great of a receiver. He's a similar in a lot of respects, though, to where like I didn't notice this guy until later. Looks pretty good. I think he can be a starter in the NFL. But the reason he comes in here below Pierre Strong is because injuries are a concern. Um, He's had some bad surgeries, especially on his legs, which is impressive because he plays really well despite having had some bad surgeries and stuff. But that's still something, obviously, to be very wary about. To where I'm not comfortable taking him before day 3. I'd be fine taking him 4th round. Like he's a guy with just a great upside. To where, yeah, I'd definitely be willing to take him, but just not too early because injuries are a real concern. But this guy can be a good back in the NFL. 13, Jaylen Warren out of OSU. This is a guy that I've liked for a while, but it's just kind of tough because it felt like, certain backs just were rising above him and he would fall, but he gave good production overall at OSU. Didn't deal with the worst line, but it also wasn't the best, especially after Tevin Jenkins left. Who was never like an elite run blocker, but still doesn't hurt. It still doesn't help to lose, guys like that. Smaller guy, but he's one of those, small guys, but has a lot of power to him. Besides the power aspect, I don't think he does anything like particularly well. He's not horrible at anything, but just not spectacular at anything else. Definitely a guy I'd be worth taking, on day 3, in my opinion, above a lot of other backs because, he does have that nice power to him. I think he is a somewhat safe player to where he's going to give you at least a solid backup. So he's worth taking, definitely my 13, but, not too high. Number 14 is going to be Brian Robinson Jr. out of Alabama. This guy was stuck behind a lot of good players for a while, especially Najee Harris, for the last couple years there at Alabama. 1 or 2 years. And so he finally got a chance to kind of be the main back this year, and he showed out. I mean, he did good with what he was given. It's a shame. I think if he played somewhere else for a longer time, he would have been able to give us some more. So that's kind of the concern is you're playing at Alabama with a lot of good talent around you, with a very good line, very good system, and you only gave us 1 year of good production, right? It wasn't fantastic. There's concern there. Just he doesn't do anything particularly wrong. He's a good running back. Like what I've seen is great. He's got good balance, good footwork. He's a nice power back. Like he's got a lot of great stuff to his game, but it's just given the situation, I'm not comfortable taking him before day 3. Still maybe that 4th or 5th round, but just because of the situation, I can't take him earlier than this. I do like him though. Like pure talent, he's probably a top 10 back, but just because of other things, other concerns, he's a big guy, but I'm going to take him here at 14 as my 14th running back. 15, Kyren Williams, redshirt sophomore out of Notre Dame. Now, as I just said earlier, I'm not a big fan of. Well, I'm a big fan of power backs. I'm fine with more of the speed backs or whatever. What I'm not a fan of are receiving backs. I've never been that high on Christian McCaffrey. Even now, I don't think he's actually as good as people make him out to be. And Alvin Kamara, I mean, he was able to run, right? So he added value before he decided to go be a criminal. But with a guy like Kyren Williams, reminds me a lot of Demetric Felton. I think he's a better runner for sure, but he's also not the most consistent runner because he would have these really nice plays where he would break out because he's a fast guy, right? That's kind of why he's a receiving back. But he just was not consistently that great, and Notre Dame does have a good run-blocking offensive line for the most part. So, I'm not comfortable taking him really before now because although he's shown nice flashes, he's a good receiver. Cool, he's a receiving back. Like, I'm not high on those. I don't think they add that much value to a team. And, I just don't think his running is actually that good. So I'm taking him above other guys. I can't speak. I'm taking him above. Okay, took a quick hour-long break after that absolutely embarrassing moment that I'm going to leave in the video because why not? I'm taking him above other guys because he does bring nice upside in general. he can be a good receiving back in the NFL. I don't value him that highly compared to other backs, so I'm gonna have him at 15. 16, Isaiah Spiller, definitely a guy that I've been lower on for a while now. A lot of people still think he's a top 10 back. At the start, he was my number one, but it's just over time, other guys have risen. I just haven't really seen anything that made me think like, wow, this guy, I would be willing to take in the second round. I've just not seen that. He's a good runner on the ground, but I just don't think he presents that even solid upside. I think he's another guy that, can be a good backup, but I just don't see starter upside in him. And I don't see a point in taking a guy before day 3 if you don't think that he's going to be a starter. And so with a case like Isaiah Spiller, I just don't really see that in him. So I have him as my 16. He's still solid, right? He's still great, but not great enough to be taken before here. 17, Zamir White. Also a guy that I know people are higher on than I am, but it's just kind of a case where, like, I used to be really, really low on him to the point where I had him as a UDFA. And he was good this year. The issue with Georgia is they just use so many different backs that you don't get to see a huge sample size of any of them in particular. Zamir White definitely played. I'd say he's up there with James Cook. I don't think he was quite on the level. I think James Cook is a much safer player than Zamir White, who is a boom or bust to me. And the boom is nice. I mean, I think this is a guy that has like a small chance to be a starter in the NFL. But more than anything, his boom is a really good backup, which I think is great. Worth taking again, 5th, maybe early 6th round. So I like him overall. But he's still going to be here at 17, just not a safe player to me. Number 18, going to be Zonovan Knight. And this is a guy I really wish I could put higher because he is a really solid power back, kind of like a one-cut back, where, you give him, I guess Javonte Williams is kind of like what I think of a lot. But the issue is that he doesn't get to the outside a lot. He just, whenever he does go to the outside, he plays really good. But he goes to the inside a lot. And the issue is that he has no patience whatsoever. Like, that was kind of one of the things I was hoping he would fix, because if he showed some higher IQ plays, being a bit more patient, he'd probably be a top 10 back for me. But as is, he's pretty much a Javonte Williams without the IQ at all, pretty much. He just doesn't have that. He just blitzes the line and hopes he can make it out of there. And unfortunately, he's not strong enough or powerful enough or, have enough arm to be able to just shake guys off. So he's solid. I think there's a good upside with him. Not starter level upside unless he does kind of, figure that out in the NFL, which who knows if he goes to a team that knows how to develop running backs. I think this guy could be a Javonte Williams type player, not quite as good, but could be similar. So, again, kind of a boomer bust guy for me, but his bust isn't, the worst. It's, a solid backup, I think. So either way, that's kind of what I feel he's going to be. Solid backup. He's kind of a safe player, yet not really being a safe player. So I got Zonovan Knight at 18. Number 19, Jerrion Ealy, another guy that I know people are really high on that I'm just not. I think he's really small. And another one of those small power backs, but it's just that this guy's like really small. He's not got the smallest frame per se, but he's sub 190, 5'8". He's just not a big guy when it comes to actual measurables. And I don't think he's powerful enough to be worth taking before this point. Not that great of a receiver. He's not that agile. So it's just kind of another case where it's like, yeah, he's pretty good at this, but he's small, which does knock him down a bit more even. So, yeah, he's definitely worth drafting. I'm not taking him before 19. 20, Ronnie Rivers. I know a couple people are really high on this guy, and I think I'm actually relatively high on him just because most of the draft community doesn't know about him per se. I'm sure it's a name that they've heard, but similar to Jerrion Ealy, he's a smaller guy. I do think he has, he's got a bit more going for him. He is above 190, which it's not like Jerrion Ealy's severely below it, but, Ronnie Rivers, I have him below just because he's played lesser competition most of the time. I mean, Fresno does play some good teams every now and then, but he just didn't have that like elite production. Like at least in Ealy had good production, through Ole Miss and stuff. Ronnie Rivers is much more of like you're hoping he can kind of translate to the NFL, which I think he can. I have him at 20. I think he's worth, a 5th, 6th round pick. Solid player. So I'd be willing to take him around here. And then Ty Chandler, the super senior at UNC. This was his best year, but that's not saying a ton. He just was never able to get anything going at Tennessee. Went to a team that, he really ended up being one of only like 2 offensive weapons for Sam Howell there. And I think he made do enough to be worth a day 3 pick, because I felt like he was pretty easily a UDFA, just because this is a guy that's always had the traits. He's always had it there. He's just never been able to put it together. And I thought an NFL team would definitely be willing to at least try. In this year showed that, like, yeah, he does have stuff in there. He can at least be a competent backup at the very least, I think. And again, maybe an NFL team's able to take him and maybe get 2 or 3 good years out of him, just because he is also older. I believe he's like 25. For a running back, that's not a good age to come into the NFL. 5 years of playing under his belt. There's a lot of things that moves him down. Like, yeah, he has a lot of intangibles. Give him the right team, he could be a legitimate good running back for 2 to 3 years, better than a lot of these guys before him here. But again, just considering the outside circumstances, he's going to be my 21. Then at number 22, we got Charles Williams out of UNLV. And again, smaller power back, but he does have, a bit more of a thinner frame to where he's able to actually bring some nice speed and agility to his game as well. I'm not a fan of his balance or footwork. That was kind of one of the things where it's like, I just don't think he's going to make for a great runner in the NFL, despite having some nice traits, some nice intangibles. I just don't think he's going to be able to hit anything really big just because of that. But he still should be a solid backup in the NFL. Kind of a safe player, but this is also kind of the realm where, like, I definitely wouldn't say the safe players are guaranteed to be backup level players. But I like Charles Williams, though. He's the best out of those guys, those kind of guys, though. So I got him at 22. Keontae Ingram out of USC. He's a bigger guy compared to the rest of this class, 6 foot 221, but he moves really well. And you saw that some of the drills where his feet just move so incredibly fast. He has good footwork. The issue with Ingram is kind of the opposite, where he is pretty fast for his size, especially. He doesn't actually bring that much power to his game, though, which is an issue for me because I don't think he's quite speedy enough to be worth taking any higher than this. And when you don't bring a ton of good power to your game, despite being a bigger guy, at that point, I think you just kind of turn into, like, potentially, a guy that's going to move around as a third string a lot, which is worth, a 6th, 7th round pick, I think. But that's where you're going to land in that case. 24, Letty Brown. A lot of these are probably going to start getting repetitive somewhat, but Letty Brown, solid all-around player. He will be a good backup in the NFL. I'm pretty confident of that because I think it is a safer player compared to a lot of these other guys. Doesn't offer any upside, unfortunately. I just don't think he ever turns into anything more than a 2-string at the best. But he will be a solid backup in the NFL. Kevin Harris, again, a guy that I know people are higher on. I'm just not. I think, for being kind of a bigger guy, it does limit his play speed, and I don't think he's that powerful to be justifiable of anything higher than this, so he is my 25. Finishing off day 3, I believe, so this is kind of your 7th round guys. Tyler Goodson out of Iowa, smaller guy, but he makes do with it because he does have nice speed, nice receiver, no power at all, and he's just not that elusive in the open field where it's like, yeah, you're kind of fast. That's really all you have to offer me. I think it's worth the day 7 pick. And it's pretty much the same thing with Tyler Batty, except maybe it's Beatty, but except the thing with him is that he's really small. Like, he's same weight, right? But he's 5'8", which is where you're getting into kind of that really small territory. Yeah, he's got good footwork. He moves well. He's quick, but I don't think he's like a Philip Lindsay. Because that is my comp for him, though, is Philip Lindsay. I feel like it's a perfect comp, but it's really not at the end of the day, just because, like, Philip Lindsay is somebody who can still absorb contact like it's nothing. I mean, he's never fumbled in his career, which is insane, but I'm pretty sure he's like the first player ever to take like 1,000 snaps and not fumble or something like that. Right, it's at least like 800. It's ridiculous. Tyler Batty just doesn't simply absorb contact like that, and even for a guy like Philip Lindsay that does, he still gets injured a fair amount, and still just isn't able to produce like you would want a lead back to. So when you're basically Philip Lindsay, but you're not as tough, I don't really see a point, drafting you before, like 7th round. He's got nice upside. I think he can be a nice speed back, but I just don't see anything other than that. 28, Jermaine Martin out of North Carolina A&T. And interesting guy here because he obviously plays at a very small school. But what I did see was a guy that offers some very interesting upside. He's never going to be a starter. He probably won't be even a 2-string, but I think he offers, decent development, like if you give him proper development, I think he can turn into a really solid depth running back. This is not normally a guy you would take, at this point in the draft, but just from what I've seen, I think he offers that nice, upside. So, quote upside, but yeah, I have him at 28. Then 29, Cameron Harris. It's just one of those players where, again, people are higher on him. I'm just not. I don't see the upside. I don't think he's going to be that great of a running back. I don't think he offers anything in particular that really wows me. He doesn't have, the IQ, doesn't really have the patience, just doesn't bring anything to me where it's like, yeah, I'll draft you. You might be a good depth running back, but besides that, So moving on to my undrafted free agents, and these are guys that I would definitely be interested in picking up after the draft. Chris Smith, and a lot of these guys are going to be similar. Chris Smith, just not. I don't think he ever had that truly great production at Louisiana to justify being drafted. Although he offers some nice upside. Ricky Person, played a decent amount, but was mainly the backup for a while there at NC State, but with nice size, some nice intangibles, still young, I think could definitely be a player worth taking a shot at. Reese White, similar situation where I think I know he didn't have tremendous production, so I have no idea if he's actually the starter or not. I assume not, just because he doesn't ever have that great production. Obviously that team does run a fair amount. Even they make their quarterback run a fair amount. Even so, it's just another case where it's like he's got interesting upside. He's got intangibles. I'd be very happy picking him up after the draft. CJ Verdell. This is kind of the first case where it's like he's actually played pretty good in college. There's nothing about his play that, should suggest that he's not worth drafting. But for me, it's the fact that he's a small guy, right? 5'8". You're seeing that I'm just not a fan of guys that are sub 5'9". Beyond that, I really think that he was made by Oregon's line. He's played behind Penei Sewell, of course, I can't come up with any other names right now, but he's played behind some very good run blocking linemen there at Oregon. So when you take into account that in reality, I don't think he does anything particularly well, and he's small, and he's played behind maybe the best run blocking line in college football, I just don't think he's worth drafting, to be honest. I think he's, certainly worth at least picking up after the fact just to see, was it the offensive line? But for me, it's like I just don't feel comfortable drafting him unless I have a really good run blocking offensive line. And even then, I'm not quite sure because I just don't think he's going to hold up in the NFL. So I got him at 33. 34, Kenny McIntosh. Definitely my least favorite Georgia guy. Between him, Zamir, and James Cook, I definitely like him the least. At the same time, he might have more potential than James Cook. Now, he's very, very far away from Cook in pretty much every other facet. He's 24 spots difference. The thing with McIntosh is just because he had the smallest sample size at Georgia, and when he did play, it wasn't like a Zamir White where it's like when he did play, he showed some really nice things. He didn't show that many great things. It's going to be another case of he's got nice intangibles, nice size. He moves decently well for his size. I'm certainly going to pick him up if I can and see, can I turn him into anything? I think he could definitely be a Patriots type back, but I'm not drafting him personally. Jaleel McLaughlin, I think that's how you say it, out of Youngstown State, kind of a guy that I picked up at a point where it's like, okay, this guy offers some interesting things. He plays decently well, kind of small guy at 175, but he's decent, right? Plays against lesser competition. All right, I'll be fine picking this guy up after the draft. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if this guy ends up going 5th or 6th round. I'm definitely sure there's a team out there that could certainly fall in love with him just because what he has done is that he brings a lot of just good things. Unlike a lot of guys before him, he does have nice balance. He's shown examples of nice patience, but he's just a smaller guy at a small school. Is that worth drafting? I don't think so. I wouldn't be surprised if a team does end up picking him though mid-day 3. Snoop Connor out of Ole Miss, just simply not as good as Jerrion Ealy. He didn't play that much. I wasn't impressed with what I've seen from him at I'm pretty sure it was either the East West Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl. might have been, well, he's a junior, so I don't know. That might not make too much sense unless he graduated early. But, it's probably the East West Shrine Bowl, though, I think. And I wasn't impressed with him wherever it was that I did see him. I can't remember which one it was. But, it's just not someone that I don't think offers that much upside, but could be a potential okay third stringer. Shamari Jones, similar case. Just wasn't impressed with him, when I did watch him. He's, if Reese White is the backup, then this guy's, third string. But I think Reese White is the starter, though, so I'm pretty sure Shamari is the backup. So, it's just a guy that didn't produce that much. I don't think showed anything spectacular when I went back and watched him. When I did see him at again, I think it was East West Shrine Bowl, didn't look good in my opinion. So, yeah, it's just kind of like I'd take a shot at him, sure, but I'm not that excited over him. Then my last undrafted free agent, Mateo Durant. This is kind of tough, right? Because really, I do want to put him higher than this. I do. But there's been some examples where I just didn't like what I saw. There would be some times where he showed some high level play, which is cool and all. There were some times where he just did not look good at all. And it goes back and forth with like everything, right? I can sit here and say that there were some plays where he looked really patient and showed high IQ and, had this great balance to his game and good footwork. And then there's plays where I can just say he didn't have any of it. And so it's kind of tough because I want to put him higher. He's a very much a boom or bust player, but at the same time, like, I'm just really doubting if he's able to hit that boom. Certainly can, but for me, it's like, yeah, I would pick him up for obvious reasons, but he's really, really not a safe player, and I just not confident that he's going to be able to hit on his boom. And then last, my undrafted, not my undrafted free agents. These are just straight up undrafted. Like I would not be signing these guys afterwards. Master Teague really disappointed me because I used to be a really big fan of this guy, but he was just not good this year. His job got taken from him. And this was the year where I was like, okay, like you're a UDFA, go prove this year that you are deserving to be like a, early day 3, mid day 2 pick. And he just lost his job because he wasn't playing good and there was just someone better. Travion's a beast, but sadly, I don't think Master Teague is worth even picking up at this point. He never showed what I wanted to see. So yeah, I would have loved if he would have transferred, but and maybe he did, but I'm pretty sure these are up to date. And he decided to come out as far as I know. So unfortunately, TJ Pledger just wasn't good at Utah, in my opinion. He didn't have like horrible stats or anything, but just, I just don't see much out of him, to be honest. I just don't think he's a running back at the next level. And then Jordan Mason, just kind of easily coming in last here. There's just not much to say about him, to be honest. It's just another case where it's like, I just don't think he's going to be anything at the next level. So it's just not worth even trying, in my opinion. Like, I talked about this in a lot of videos where it's like, I don't want to sit here and say like, this guy's hopeless, right? Like preferably every one of these guys would turn out to be great, but it's just personally, I don't really see these guys doing anything in the NFL. But that is going to wrap up my running back rankings for the 2022 draft. Like I said, quarterback and special teams already out. Wide receiver will be next. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the like and subscribe button and to make sure you never miss an upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.